Hmm.
In April 1923, inside a Cairo hotel room, a wealthy British lord lay in a coma. He was suffering from a severe fever, struggling for air. At exactly 1:55 a.m., he took his last breath. At that precise moment, the entire city of Cairo lost its electricity. Thousands of miles away in England, his pet dog let out a sudden scream and died on the spot. Just 12 days before his death, the popular novelist Marie Corelli had published an incredibly specific public warning in the Daily Express. She wrote that anyone who disturbed a sealed ancient grave would be met with severe punishment. A few months prior, in November 1922, an underfunded British archaeologist named Howard Carter was working on his final chance. His sponsor, the now-deceased Lord Carnarvon, was about to cut off his money. But then, in the heat of the Valley of the Kings, Carter's workers uncovered a sealed stairway cut straight into the rock. Inside, they found over 5,000 objects perfectly preserved. There were meteorites from space, iron daggers, and a solid gold coffin belonging to an obscure pharaoh named Tutankhamun. Soon after the discovery, a terrifying detail made its way into the press. A clay tablet at the entrance of the tomb supposedly carried a dark inscription: "Death shall come on swift wings to whoever disturbs the peace of the pharaoh." Over the next 6 years, 22 people connected to the excavation died. A radiologist passed away suddenly. A 78-year-old father of a tomb secretary jumped from a 7th-floor window. And when doctors finally performed an autopsy on the 3,000-year-old mummy, they found a mark on his cheek. It matched the exact spot where Lord Carnarvon had sustained a fatal mosquito bite. By the late 1920s, the entire globe lived in fear of a 3,000-year-old ghost. To understand how that terror took root, we have to look past the headlines and examine the specific individuals who built this story from the ground up. Curious, analytical. Let's look closely at that ancient clay tablet promising death on swift wings. It never existed in the tomb. When experts analyzed the phrasing of the supposed curse, they realized it didn't match the ancient Egyptian language. The words actually belonged to the novelist Marie Corelli. The myth started when a journalist asked the tomb's head of security, Richard Adamson, about potential curses. Adamson hadn't found any warning inscription, but he decided to play along. With a single, silent smile, he let the reporter run with the fabricated story. The timing was perfect for a frenzy. The Times newspaper had secured an exclusive deal for all official updates from the excavation, leaving rival publications desperate for anything to print. So every time an Egyptologist or museum official died from old age or fever, competitors like the Morning Post blamed the curse to sell papers. There was no ancient magic at work. The Curse of the Pharaoh was simply a highly successful, widely circulated piece of 20th century fake news. The supernatural evidence falls apart under basic scrutiny. In the 1920s, Cairo's electrical grid was notoriously unreliable, making sudden blackouts extremely common. And because of the time zone difference, Lord Carnarvon's dog in England actually died hours after he did, not at the exact same moment. As for the respiratory issues suffered by the tomb workers, science provides a clear answer. A fungus called Aspergillus niger can lay dormant in tombs for thousands of years. Inhaling its spores causes severe inflammation in the lungs. And Lord Carnarvon was chronically ill long before he reached Egypt. He accidentally sliced open a mosquito bite while shaving in the sweltering heat. In 1923, before the discovery of penicillin, a severe infection on a weakened immune system was a standard death sentence. This chart compares the life expectancies of the 44 Westerners present during the tomb's discovery. Investigator James Randi tracked the data and found the average age of death for the cursed individuals was 73 years. They actually lived longer than the average for their social class. Howard Carter, the man who actually opened the tomb, physically handled the mummy, and removed its treasures, survived for another 16 years. He died of natural causes at the age of 64. Once you apply basic science, geography, and statistics, the supernatural terror evaporates. All that remains is the mundane reality of human mortality. If Tutankhamun wasn't a powerful sorcerer reaching from beyond the grave, who was the real person buried beneath the sand? He was born into an Egyptian royal family, where extreme inbreeding had been practiced for generations. Because of this, the boy king suffered from a painful bone disorder called Kohler's disease, multiple bouts of malaria, and a severe clubfoot. He was so physically frail that he couldn't take a single step without support. That is why archaeologists found 130 walking sticks placed directly inside his tomb. His brief life was incredibly turbulent. He was placed on the throne as an 8-year-old child, right after his father's disastrous attempt to overhaul the entire Egyptian religion. He inherited a ruined kingdom, and by the time he was 19, he was dead. The media invented a terrifying phantom to sell newspapers. The actual person was a chronically ill teenager who had almost no power over his own life. In ancient Egypt, physical death was only the first step. They believed a person only truly vanished from existence when the living stopped speaking their name. Because his family's reign was considered a massive failure, the rulers who followed Tutankhamun deliberately chiseled his name off monuments and removed him from all official records. They wanted him completely forgotten. Ironically, erasing his name is exactly what saved his wealth. Because the records were gone, grave robbers had no idea his tomb was there. He sat perfectly undisturbed in the dark for 3,000 years. When Carter finally opened the doors, rival journalists needed a catchy headline, so they plastered the name King Tut across billions of newspaper pages worldwide, transforming an obscure ruler into the most famous pharaoh in history. The sensation surrounding the curse inadvertently granted a forgotten boy king the exact eternal life his enemies tried to deny him. 3,000 years after his name was erased, he finally became immortal.